Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Partially Accurate podcast. My name's Tom, and I'm not going to lie to you, I had somewhat of a transformative experience when I first started this. This is the first episode I'm recording. I've maybe had like one or two takes beforehand. Didn't really get far through, wasn't really feeling it. Because I'm not going to lie to you, this is the first time I've had somewhat of a camera or a stage presence. Haven't really had much in the way of the limelight in the past. So I wasn't feeling particularly confident, So just beforehand, I was rocking somewhat of a, what do you call a laziness beard? Like growth, not particularly trimmed or shaved or anything. Not really a defined jawline or anything, just, you get that growth down here that just kind of, you've got that beard level that will define your jawline, make you look fucking tops, but if you let it just sort of go unkempt, you'll get that bit just down here, and it just turns your face into this just unremarkable, slobby looking kind of deal. And it's weird, like, it was reflecting in how I was recording, so I don't know. I've sort of shaved it, evidently, left a filthy mo instead in its place. Somewhat of a, a bit of a gravestone, a bit of a rest in peace kind of deal. I mean, the mo, the muzzy, the lip dangler, it, for a lot of reasons, it's almost paradoxically this sort of mix between the filthiness of it. It's almost like the worse it looks, the more confident it makes you. Like, I could be clean shaven right now, full baby face or whatever. I guess it depends how you look at it, but I don't think I'd be summoning the same sort of bravado I am with this just monstrosity that's sitting on my upper lip. And look, it's November, Movember, Men's Health Awareness Month. It's for a good cause, Time to donate, get out there, make sure, ask your mates, are you okay? That sort of stuff, I'm digressing a lot, which I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing on a podcast. I'll work it out. This is the first episode. Any feedback is welcome. Seriously. Like, I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm currently sitting with a lamp behind a GoPro that is recording while I'm recording audio on Apple headphones that I will later edit. By the way, don't really know how to edit that well either. So this is all very much a work in progress. I'll edit all that as well and sort of see how it turns out. I'm kind of hoping that if people enjoy me or the concept in general, they will, get around it, subscribe. I've got a Patreon as well. It's probably plastered everywhere, to be honest. All sort of publicity stuff. But yeah, I feel it can only get better from here. As I get more experience and better equipment and all that, hopefully it'll, become more bearable to watch or listen to. But in the meantime, I am just going to hope that my personality can pull it through. But yeah, a bit about me. Fucking something like 5 minutes into the podcast. Bit about me. I'm Tom. I'm a student. I study, I'm not going to tell you the particular degree, but a lot to do with national security and politics. It's something I'm interested in. As with most students, though, it's one of those things where you're not really sure where you're going to go or whether it's the degree for you. Definitely sort of in the limbo stage, but don't want to lay it all on you guys too early. I work as a lifeguard, which is a lot of fun. Just get to stand around in the sun in summer, stand around in the rain in winter. Definitely a weather-dependent job. However, you do get a fair few good stories from it, and I'll go into those a little bit later. I live in Sydney, Australia. Best city on earth, in my opinion. No offense. You can get offended by that. I don't really care. What else? Yeah. And this is my first ever podcast. Hey. Yeah, I'll be going through and seeing how things work out. Ideally, I'll have some friends of mine on as well. Segments and a lot more preparation work ready. And like I said, once the equipment gets better, it's definitely I'll have the capacity to move around a bit more and get a lot more involved. I think definitely later down the line, I want to get a live setup going, because I think that's ultimately like the best possible outcome for any sort of podcast, like, you know, audience interaction. I'm a thirsty boy. I think that in general, just being able to interact with any sort of community, or honestly anyone that will just sort of, you know, just generally get around it, get amongst, you know, just get amongst it, you know, because they're the ones that, you know, are going to keep helping me to do this. Anyway, lifeguarding. Where was it? Lifeguarding stories. Okay, I got a fair few to go through. I might try and limit it to one per episode, because I don't want to blow my load too early in all these stories, because they're pretty solid anecdotes. They're pretty tip top. So, first of all, I'm going to tell you guys the story of the Poopy Bandit. So the Poopy Bandit was this kid with Down syndrome that rocked up to work one day. So I lifeguarded a pool, sometimes beach, but mostly pool. And in that pool, there's like sort of a medium-sized pool, not too deep. It's where kids will sort of play around and do swimming lessons, that sort of thing. And this little kid was sort of walking around the concrete area around it, just what you call the deck, the pool deck. And this kid, I'm not going to try and say I'd noticed him beforehand. He was kind of a face in the crowd. But my God, what he did, it separates the boys from the men, I'll tell you that. He decided to sort of, once he'd got a bit of space around him, I don't know how he managed it, but in a pretty packed area, he just sort of got like a bit of a 1 meter radius around him. He just stood still. Previously just kind of walked around, just stood dead still, looked around, started casing the joint a little, drops his trousers, drops his dacks, and just lays a pristine shit on the concrete. Like, you know how they've got those ones in cartoons you see that sort of spiral? That is the closest thing I've ever seen in real life to that. And I'm not sure if it's because it wasn't in a toilet or something, but it was just pristine. And this kid, after obviously pulling his pants back up, like, he's not a savage, he's got to pull his pants up. He then proceeds to just stare at the lifeguards, like, let's stare at me, because I'm the one on deck, with such a, no pun intended, shit-eating grin. And for a bit of context, the general rule of the pool is, if the shit is in the water, us lifeguards clean it up. Like, we have to get in with a scoop and stuff. But if it's on the concrete, no, we palmed it off to the cleaners, man. They got to do something. So at that point, I was laughing. I was beaming. I was having a grand old time just laughing at this kid, or laughing with this kid. This kid was ecstatic. He was so proud of what he'd done, and it was infectious. So at that point, I was just laughing. I was like, this kid, man. And I don't know if my laughter spurred him on or something, but this kid, seeming to, I must have egged him on somehow, but this kid, he wasn't done. He was not done. This man was a showman. He was a true entertainer. And as I'm radioing to the cleaner to go, hey, here's something to clean up, he takes a step back And I will never forget this. Just swings his foot forward like he was going for a field goal in rugby or football or whatever sport you choose. Just foot makes a perfect connection with the shit, and it just arcs through the air, and with a little plop into the pool. I shit you not. I gotta stop making poo jokes, man. I shit you not. Perfect arch. The form, ecstatic. And look, I still couldn't be mad with the kid. I was still just absolutely loving it. Because this kid had somehow managed to shit in 2 places, or managed to wipe out 2 areas of the pool at once. Obviously, we had to shut the pool and all that, but whatever. We shut the pool, it's one less pool to watch. And this kid's kick was so clean, so crisp. I went over after the fact and looked at the spot where the original shit had been laid. No skid mark. This kid's a maestro. He truly was 1 in a million. I will never ever forget the Poopy Bandit. Never ever. I want to quickly jump in with an ad read after this story that don't have any ads. This is a complete freebie. I could say sponsored by my Patreon, but this is the first episode, so no one's become patrons yet. Obviously. 1 second. And I'm back. Sorry about that. Little interruption there. Where I was doing my stupid meme of an ad read. So, a little more info about what this pod's going to have or entail or whatever. I honestly didn't structure this that well. I think my notes say introduction, background about me, story from work, so that sort of thing. Bullshit, whatever. I think I definitely had way too much confidence in my ability to ad-lib. Yeah. What do you guys think of Face ID? Face ID, the newest development from Apple and their iPhone stuff. I wonder, I know the iPhone X is well and truly out at this point. Or iPhone 10. I know you're not meant to call it the X for some reason. I feel like that's just Apple with their pretentious marketing, once again. Although, I say that while using a MacBook, iPhone, and just like well and truly being embedded in the Apple ecosystem. But it's a useful hypocrisy. Who's not a hypocrite nowadays, man? Anyway, but Face ID, man. They've shown you can't use like a picture of yourself and that sort of stuff, so the safety issues. But I wonder how stuff like Apple Pay is going to be used. I mean, Touch ID is great for Apple Pay. I think Touch ID and Apple Pay is fan-fucking-tastic. However, Face ID, there's no thumbprint scanner. There's no fingerprint scanner in the iPhone X. Is it going to be a matter of, oh, hi, yeah. Apple Pay, yeah. That seems like such a step backward, isn't it? And I mean, I feel like if you're going to steal someone's iPhone and use the Apple Pay, it's a bit easier to go. It's a bit easier to force them. Well, you don't even have to force them. You just snag their phone, just go anywhere. Or try and get their face scanned and look, I'm no expert, but I don't know. I think Touch ID was a great feature. And for them to go backward on that, it seems like a bit of a, step backward. But anyway. Fuck. I don't think I'm as funny as I thought. You guys ever have that? Like a realization that while you think internally that you're an absolute comedian, in reality you're just, you know, not shit. Like you're not good by any stretch of the imagination. However, the best you can muster is not shit. Fuck, I should have called this thing Not Shit Podcast. Made a horrible mistake. But yeah, I think this solo podcast stuff is going to be interesting for me. I'm not sure. You know, I'll get there. I'll get there. I also think that it'll be a lot easier to muster when I'm not. You know, when I've got someone to banter off, bit of back and forth, bit of how you going? Hey, how you doing? Yeah, mate, pretty good, eh? But beyond that, I'm just kind of all right. I'm just a decently entertaining, but not great, decent. In my area, we have a lot of middle-aged white women that think they're God's gift to retail or any sort of customer service job. And you get a lot of those, who's going to do what? No, let me speak to your manager. No. No. No, who's the customer here? Who's going to do what? Huh? No. I... Like those women that just like, they're so desperate to keep up the veneer of this, I've got it all under control. I've got it all under control. But in reality, they just have this rage that burns fucking hotter than the sun. And it's never quite, the veneer, like their facade is never quite thick enough to actively conceal what they're feeling, you know? I guess we're all guilty of that to a degree. I don't think anyone can truly mask or hide their feelings. You know, we're only human, or I feel like those that do are complete, you know, isn't sociopath. They're the ones who can do that. But anyway, these fucking women, man, these middle-aged women, they almost seem to like go out of their way looking for trouble. They're like a group of kids, a group of like teenage boys in some sort of 80s coming of age film, some Stand By Me shit. But instead of like going hunting for dead bodies, they go and find some minimum wage worker that's really had way too much to deal with that day. And they just like to push and push and push. Thankfully, I don't really have much of an experience with this. Like, I haven't worked in one of these jobs, but I've always been the one behind them in the line. And I feel like a lot of us, well, I personally, I'm sure you guys can relate to this. Do you ever have those, like, I have no better way to describe them than fantasies? These little fantasies in your head where you're like, oh, fucking tell them, like, oh, next time I see them being a dick to someone, I go, hey, lady, stop being a bitch, or some shit like that. You never follow through with them because, look, at our core, we're all socially awkward robots. But in your head, in that moment, you're always going, the next time, I swear to God, I'll do it. I don't think I've ever encountered a situation where that's played out. However, there was one guy I'd seen, and he was probably the most unlikely candidate for this level of bravery that I've ever encountered. So, I was at a midnight release for a video game. I think it was Pokemon or something like that. I know, crucify me. But this woman had sort of rocked up and was kicking up a fuss because She was in front of she was maybe in the middle of the line. I'd already gotten the game at that point. I was just kind of chilling out, waiting for a friend to pick up his, and she was sort of in the middle of the line and got to the stage in the line where she was at the counter, and she thought she'd pre-ordered two, she'd only got one, yada yada yada. You know, the usual sort of mild retail conflict that it's not big enough to spiral into anything outrageous, but at the same time it's not small enough that it can be resolved really quickly. So this woman's just kind of laying into this EV Games employee, who, by the way, this poor bastard he's been working until midnight, or I don't know if they stay in the store from closing time to midnight. I'm not sure the logistics are. If you're a game store employee, comment somewhere and let me know, because I'm actually curious. I'd love to have you on the show. But this poor bugger, he dead inside completely. I'm not sure how many hours he'd had asleep. Not enough to deal with this situation. He was just kind of at the point where he was like, yeah, what was it? Yeah. And this woman's just laying into him. I don't know where she got the energy either. Like, she's something in her 40s, 50s. Unless she slept through the day. Fuck knows what schedule that woman's working to. I don't even want to delve into that. Anyway, she's going into it, and this fucking dude, maybe two people back, the most stereotypical fedora toting, katana bearing, white knight of a man. He's left his dungeon for the day. And look, I have an admiration for those sort of dudes. If you can pull off that lifestyle, let's be real. I think we all wish we could just sit down on someone else's dime, play video games, eat shitty food, own fucking katanas. Like, I think we all deep down want that level of confidence, or that level of self-indulgence. That's probably the best way to put it. Self-indulgence in our lives. And that man, the myth, that legend, spoke up and can you fuck off? Can you go away? Please? And look, I can't blame the guy. I wouldn't have even spoken up. But it's like the moment he'd opened his mouth, his testicles had just been fucking strangled. Like his own scrotum had just fucking compressed him to such the point where his voice just... And look, I don't know if that was social anxiety paired with bravado or whatever cocktail, so whatever social cocktail that was. But this lady just turned around like some sort of roided up shark. Fucking just with a look that could melt plastic. Absolutely turned on this man. And a look that I'm not sure I can really describe. It had me lost for words, but this man stood his ground. He may have been too big to move. He may have been too scared to move. And that's probably why he didn't move, but he stood his ground. And this lady, I'm not even sure this lady had seen a person like this before. This lady didn't even look like she fathomed the internet, let alone the kind of sad Pepe man that this guy was. This basement dweller. And I don't say that in a derogatory sense. I think this man was a true anon. He was proud of it. Anyway, I don't think she'd encountered anyone like it before. And the transition between unbridled rage and sheer confusion is sort of like, magical. There's no other way I can put it. But anyway, I think I'm like 3 tangents deep. An old primary school teacher of mine told me that I had somewhat of a tangential mind. And I did some research into it. It's basically the idea that your mind will start at one point. Say everyone else's or an average conversation is linear. You'll go from one point to one point to one point to one point. A tangential conversation will often go from one point to this point or this point. Sometimes they can link. Sometimes they can spread off into other points. And I'm not sure if that's a good quality to have on a podcast. I think I've spent a lot of this podcast, a lot of this podcast being awfully meta and questioning whether or not what I'm saying is good for a podcast, and I apologize for that. I'm not sure if that's good for a podcast. But hopefully the feedback you guys can give me, if anyone watches this, will be greatly useful. It doesn't sound right, greatly useful. Will be of great use, that's better. Will be of great use to me in my quest to, become more confident in front of a camera and actually have a podcast that isn't shit. Baby steps. Baby steps on that. But fuck, that was like a 3-second silence, but it felt like ages. Anyway, they have this saying in radio. A friend of mine works in radio, and they say dead air is no good. Like, you can't. Apparently, in radio, it's like strictly forbidden to have like gaps, like, or particularly commercial radio, like your top 40 kind of stuff. They apparently despise having any sort of gap in a sentence, like a bit of dead silence. Like, I think that's where I sort of have a downfall to a degree. Like, I've been told I have a face for radio, but I'm not sure I'd be cut out for it. It's a lot of hours of just solo talking, and a lot of dead space seems to come from me. A lot of dead air. Anyway, another thing I was told is that, well, look, I've been doing more research into podcasts than I care to admit, because I have no fucking clue as to how to go about this. But the best kind of podcast apparently is conversational, in which you'll ask the audience rhetorical questions that you will probably answer yourself, or engage with them in such a way that it's, hey, how you going? Having a good old chin wag, bit of a yarn. And I'm not sure. I had this idea in my head of like a Dora the Explorer kind of style interaction, where it's like, what do you think about this? Yeah, me too. And fuck, I tried it for a couple of cuts. I deleted them, so there's no way they're getting into this video, but my god. How do the people that create such mind-numbing content sleep at night? Although, to be fair, mine's not exactly stellar so far, but here we go. Uphill from here. Do you guys ramble? You guys ever find yourself in a situation where you can't stop yourself from just saying shit? You just can't stop yourself. And no matter what sort of train of thought you try and redirect yourself on, you will just keep saying words that don't necessarily have any sort of link to your whole point, and you will just keep carrying on one sentence as long as you can, because in reality, you're low-key running out of things to talk about. Or you're floundering. Now, who would do that, right? All right, I'm back. After some weird intermissions and creating more work for myself to do while editing later. Fuck, how was I going to end that sentence? Doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm back. I know you guys missed me. Probably was a fucking second for you guys. Doesn't matter. Anyway, what is the go with period dramas? Stuff like Victoria, Downton Abbey and all that, they seem to have the most, like, infectious, like, the most addictive sort of qualities to them, even though they're based around, from what I gather, British people engaging in mild scandal. Which, as entertaining as it sounds when I say it, ironically, it seems to engage so many people. I earlier in the week sat down, had a chat with my mum while she was watching some Victoria, and the episode base seemed to be Victoria got too drunk at one of the balls, and the Russian something or other got too handsy with her. And that seems to be the plot point to an entire episode. Now, I don't mean to be some sort of bloody pretentious prick when it comes to television and writing, but I mean, hell, look at the structure of this fucking podcast, man. But how the fuck does that like retain an audience? How is that gripping? Like, the storytelling is at best. They can't get outrageous with what's happening because, you know, it happened, it's fact, or at the very least they're basing it off fact. So the excitement levels are at an all-time low. No one even fucks, dude. No, there's not like any hot and steamy scenes. I guess that makes sense when they're like studying characters such as like Queen Victoria, and I reckon the current Queen would probably have something to say if they engaged in some, if they basically aired like a 20-minute scene of Victoria getting railed. But every other element of every other TV show, good writing, great characters, action, sex, anything that is engaging from any other popular TV show seems to be absent in these shows, yet they're so successful. I don't understand it. I'm going to plead it. I'm going to admit my ignorance on this one and just say, I don't understand it. I don't understand how these things are popular, man. Some food for thought. Anyway, another highlight from talking to my mum was just earlier, actually, when I had to cut. I go upstairs, and upon seeing the masculine, filthy, dirty, tradie Mo that I've, planted on my face, or let live while the rest of it had to go. She's going, you look like a gay man from the 70s. Comment below if you think my mustache makes it look like a gay man from the 70s. Dude, gay people have style, though, man. I'm not gay, but gay people are cool. Who knows? And anyway, I'm back. May have to wrap this one up. This is sort of a weird intermission between 30 minutes or so isn't too bad for a first cast, particularly on a solo one. I'm hoping you guys have enjoyed it so far. Please give me feedback, because as you may have guessed, I don't know what I'm doing, but I really, 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 really want to get good at this and produce content you guys can enjoy. You can listen to on your drive. You can watch when you're bored. Just chuck me on in the background, you know? Just don't even listen to me. Just have this voice as a friendly presence when you're doing whatever. You know, chuck me on when you're having a wank, you know? You're watching some random woman get pounded online and you're just like, you need some company. You need someone to really just help you fall asleep even. Just, I feel like that's where podcasts are best, you know? Just driving, wanking, sleeping. Just having a warm presence to listen to tuck you in at night. By the way, guys, have a fan-fucking-tastic day. Thanks for spending this last 35 minutes or so with me. And subscribe, support my Patreon if you think I deserve any money. Or if you want to keep hearing from me, because, you know, money can be exchanged for goods and services, and I need money. Don't like saying it that often. Oh, fuck me. I'm just going to cut that whole part out, to be honest. Thanks for coming by, guys. Thanks for spending the last 35 minutes or so with me. Loved having you guys around, and see you next time. Give me any feedback, support my Patreon, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll upload the audio to SoundCloud as well if you're listening from there. Thank you. And I'll try and find a way to get it on iTunes and get hopefully some sort of ads. But in the meantime, I will try and get something up in the next week or two. Depends when I can get my friend around it. My friend Nick, good friend of mine, will be joining me on the pod next time. If you have any questions, comment, DM me on Twitter, either my personal one at Tom the Southern or the podcast's one, partially accurate on Twitter. And have a good one, guys. See ya.